Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This EDC, or Everything That Doesn't Cut, video is going to be on 3 tools from GearInfusion. And so, quick disclaimer, one of them does cut, but I thought that this would fit better in my kind of non-knife playlist. So this is an EDC video, even though this one does cut. And so I actually heard about GearInfusion from a video by Next Level EDC. If you haven't heard of Next Level EDC, he does great videos and often has a focus on budget options, so I really appreciate that, and you should definitely check out his channel if you have not. But I heard of the EverRatchet clip in a video on pry bars. I've been really getting into pry bars relatively recently over the past year or so, and saw this and was really interested. So I checked out GearInfusion's website and saw that you can get these engraved, and I wanted to get one engraved with my logo. It turned out that the clip version didn't have space for it, whereas the normal EverRatchet would. But I was interested in this clip version, and in the process asked if they would be interested in sending one for review. And Brian of GearInfusion said yes, and actually asked if I would be interested in these 2 other tools also. So you've got this little pry bar in the EverRatchet clip with lots of other functions, which I'll talk about. I've got the GhostTI or GhostTI, which is a utility slider knife. And then I've got the Brew Soldier, which is a bottle opener. So I'm going to start with the Brew Soldier here. First of all, this is a USA made tool. So it's made in the USA, and it's actually made in a facility that employs autistic people. So I really appreciate that. I think if, industry can do good things like that, then it's a positive, especially for a USA made tool. And considering that this is only $12 in this kind of normal configuration, so it's an inexpensive tool. You can get yourself a USA made titanium bottle opener that honestly could be used as a pry bar somewhat also for $12. Now, I actually have almost no use for a bottle opener. I don't drink alcohol anymore, and really very few bottles have pop open tops anyway, but I wanted to try it out. So I've got some Budweiser Zero here. These are twist tops, but we'll see how it goes. You can see that it's got this nice sharp lip to get under, maybe under the lip of the cap, and pry it up. I'm going to try not to hit my tripod. It should not take this many pulls, if you were not being careful about it like I am, but works nicely, pops the top off, and you are good to go. So it definitely works well. And like I say, I do think that you could make this a pry bar. Honestly, if they took this kind of arm here and just made it a little bit thinner, honestly, just like this lip or this tooth here, you would have yourself a little pry bar. I mean, look at that shape. It would work just like a pry bar. So I actually think that I'm going to file this off and turn it into a really, really small USA made titanium pry bar. So I think it's a cool little tool that if they just made one adjustment that I don't really think would detract from the use as a bottle opener, this could be a really nice, tiny, very lightweight, very inexpensive option as a USA made titanium pry bar. So cool little tool here. Like I say, I don't have a lot of use for it in its current form, but I think it does have a lot of utility hidden, in this little arm here. So I want to move on to the GhostTI or GhostTI. I'm not sure exactly which way it's supposed to be said. I'm going to say GhostTI going forward here. Now, this is not USA made, but it is a nice, inexpensive titanium utility slider at $50. Now, I got into utility knives about a year ago, something like that, and have reviewed several. I actually have a couple that I need to review still. So something like the Work Pro, these are super inexpensive and honestly work really nicely. And then you've got the Olight Otical, another good option that's easy to exchange the blades without any tools. And then you can get pretty inexpensive slider options from places like Walmart. There's options like this. So this one has a slider, but it is steel instead of titanium. So this is titanium, and one nice feature of it is that you do get this little cord cutter section here, so you can see there's a cutout. So if you needed to cut some rope and didn't need to get the whole blade out, you could slice it with that. I believe that this would work for zip ties as long as the zip tie is not too tight. So that's a nice option if you do a lot of cutting of cord or zip ties. And then it is really easy to actuate. At first, I wasn't exactly sure how you did it until I asked Brian and watched a video, but basically it's pretty straightforward. You press this bar. You can see this bar has a little lip right there that holds that blade in place. That little lip on the bar right there holds it in place. So you have to push the bar so that then you can slide it forward and hopefully, you know, don't cut yourself like I just almost did. But then this part here interlocks with the cutout in the blade. And so you can either do, you know, the shorter length, or you can also do a longer length like so. Either, you know, is held in stably. You're not going to have to worry about it pulling out or anything like that. I typically would just go for the second one. You can even go past it and then pull it back in. That's something that I did a few times. And then to retract it, all you have to do is pull that bar again. And I think the best way to do this that I've found is by actually just holding it up and letting it fall down. That seems to really pretty much always make it fall all the way back, especially because then this magnet helps pull it there. So it does have both this kind of lip to hold it in place and this magnet. And speaking of the magnet, you can also use that to put it onto something like a fridge or a work drawer thing, something like that, anything metal. Now that is true if you don't have a lanyard on it. With this lanyard on, it doesn't seem to be a strong enough magnet to hold it there with the separation that is created by the lanyard. But I did like having the lanyard on it because I feel like it gives you a little bit of extra purchase. You can see how I can hold this 3D printed bead that a friend TJ gave me. You can hold that and pull on the bar here and then get it open. So, you know, it's pretty easy to use. My kind of chubby fingers every now and then will get in the way, as you saw that time, but it's easy to do one-handed. Now, it does also have a little pry tip, and I actually used this a little bit. I had this in my pocket. I just had shorts on one day and was going outside to feed the chickens with my son, and he noticed that there was one of his little Matchbox cars frozen into the ice. It's been crazy icy, especially when I first got this, and I used the pry bar, you know, tip here to actually pry it out. Now, it worked well. The Matchbox car didn't necessarily fare too well because it was completely frozen in the ice, but it did work well. I will say that it's not the most comfortable grip in hand here when you're using this because it's off to the side, so you know this part here can kind of dig into your hand, but it does work well. So you do have a little pry tip, and you could probably use that to screw something in somewhat, but I never used it for that, to be completely honest. Now, if I was going to improve this, I would like to see it have a clip. I don't know exactly where you would put it. So if you saw on the heart model slider thing, this clip is actually between two of the layers, so that wouldn't work for this. But you could screw a clip on right here, but then that would take away from the function of the magnet to actually magnetize it to something metal. So I would say, actually, if at all possible, if there could be a way to kind of figure it into the design, a clip similar to the EverRatchet clip that is kind of an integral clip would be a good option. It might make it a little bit wider. You might have to add on here, but that's just something. I do like to have a clip on knives in general, but you don't have to have it. This I think is a good option to slide into your fifth pocket, your watch pocket, and it's really unobtrusive there. Or have, you know, magneted, whatever the word for that is, to, you know, your fridge or your your toolbox, something like that, so that you can use it when you need it. Maybe if you don't have your normal knife, use it and then put it away and you're good to go. So another cool little tool from GearInfusion, but the one that I was really interested in, like I said, is this EverRatchet clip. And the reason for that is because, one, it fills a role in my kind of EDC that wasn't really filled by anything useful. And then two, because it has this really interesting feature of the actual ratchet. So first of all, that role that wasn't filled is in my actual way of attaching my keys to my belt loop or my pocket. So for a long time, I was using just a little kind of dangler hook, and it worked great, but has no utility otherwise. And then I was using a carabiner, like an S-biner, and they're a little bit of a hassle to use, in my opinion. So I wanted to get something that I could use to attach my keys, but then would also have some utility. And Next Level EDC made a great point in his video where he said, you know, this is a good place to have a pry bar, because while, you know, standalone pry bars like these, something from Nice Guy Machine Company or Teal Designs, they're really cool, they're great. I do enjoy having them and have enjoyed getting to, you know, kind of dive into that world. I think really something like this is gonna be fine, gonna be enough for the actual prying that you do with your pry bar, or scraping even. And that's because really the purpose of a pry bar is to stop you from breaking your knife. So, you know, you don't wanna take your expensive fancy knife or your inexpensive knife and pry with the tip and break it. You know, you want to have something that you can pry with without damaging it, or I guess caring about damaging it quite as much, or damaging whatever you're scraping against. That's one of the problems with scraping with knives or harder tools than titanium, is that it can, you know, mar up a surface. So I do think that that's a good point, and I wanted to try that out. Now I have tried other things like that. So here is the Gerber mullet, and if you're familiar with it, you can see the size comparison. The Gerber mullet is longer, but a kind of a similar idea in that it has the dangler hook with a bit driver within that. This is actually just a wrench, not a bit driver, but kind of a similar idea. And then a pry bar at the front and a hole that you can attach things to. Now, the GearInfusion EverRatchet clip is much better than the Gerber mullet. I actually don't even really know that I'm going to take the time to review the Gerber mullet because I didn't end up using it much. On the other hand, I have been carrying this every day since I got it for at least a couple weeks, I think more like a month. And it has been completely unobtrusive. It has not added any bulk to my EDC, and it is very useful. So what I've done is I have taken my keys, which this is really the only keys that I carry all the time. I do have a house key and a work key that I just keep in my car. But I have this old carabiner type titanium thing. These are made in the USA, I believe. I got these like a long time ago when I first got into EDC, and I can't even remember who made them, but they're pretty nice, and they're the perfect size to latch onto this 1/4 inch hex cutout here. And so it's not too long. It is kind of a long dangler, but it's not too long, and it can hold my keys. But if I need this for something, it's easy to just unhook it. Looked less easy than it normally is there. I think I normally do it this way. Yeah, that's easier. So you can see if you hook it with the angled part of the pry tip, it comes out a little bit easier. But you can hook your keys to this, and actually when I was using a longer carabiner, I hooked it up here into the ratchet area. But either way, you hook it, and then I mostly put my my belt loop into this. And then I added this little lanyard just to make it a little bit easier to pull out off of the belt loop. You don't really need the lanyard. I think it works fine without it, but it is there. Now you can certainly also put it in your pocket, which I have done, and I'm going to show you that with my trusty oven mitt made from a back pocket. You can see you put it in here, slide it down in, and it holds on nice and securely. Most of the time it's going to go flat like this, and then again you can pull it out. Now, the one downside of this tool really is the bottle opener for me. This bottle opener is very, very similar to the bottle opener on the Brew Soldier. So you can see they have basically the exact same footprint or shape within the bottle opener area. So it's going to work just as well. But like I said, I have basically no use for a bottle opener. And every now and then when I'm trying to hook this, the actual clip part, onto my belt loop or my pocket, it'll catch on this first. So I think that I'm probably in a small minority by saying this, but I would prefer this without the bottle opener. But it has lots of other tools also. So first of all, like I said, it is a pry bar. This has a good thickness of the pry tip, I think. It could be maybe slightly thinner, but just ever so slightly. It is not a thick edge of the pry tip here, and you've got a nice wide pry tip so you can do scraping. I think scraping is what you use these for pretty often, at least I do. But you can certainly also pry with it. I've taken batteries out with it, open up battery compartments and things like that. I think, what was I doing recently? Oh, I was using this to, we got some of those door handle cover things that stop a kid from being able to open a door. My 2.5-year-old recently figured out how to open our doors in our house and has been escaping into separate rooms and such. So we got those and they came hooked together, and you know, this worked great for unhooking it. And so it works fine as a pry tip. And then you've got a tiny little centimeter, so this is 1 centimeter here, roller. So I haven't used that. It's a pretty small roller, but you've got it there. You've got a larger, I forget what size this is, but a larger wrench. And then you do have some wrench sizes in here. These are smaller wrench sizes. Now I'm going to take this out here. Smaller wrench sizes, and they also say that this is a wire stripper. Now I don't strip a lot of wire, so I haven't used that at all, but really the kind of unique and cool thing about this is that it has an actual ratchet, so that's why it's called the EverRatchet. Now this clip version, not only does it have the clip, but it also holds the bit in without O-rings. And I don't really love O-rings. I don't really prefer when things use O-rings to hold the bit in. So you can see that's in there. And like I say, I've carried this every day for like over a month, and it's never come out. It's never started to come out. And that's because this bar presses against it, and there's two kind of little lips there. So I really like that it holds it in without an O-ring. And then what you do is you put your bit, and it can be any bit. It doesn't have to be this one that comes with it, any of this size bit. And it actually works like a ratchet. So, you know, you could do lefty-loosey, ratchet, lefty-loosey, or turn it over and do tight ratchet. So it's really, really cool. I have used it some. Now, of course, it's not like having a full-size ratchet. It also is a little bit more, it needs a little bit more resistance to do the ratchet motion than I think some normal ratchets. And so you do, you know, this is for once you've already tightened the screw down a little bit or haven't unloosened it yet, but it works really well. And it's such a cool thing because it is a one-piece design. There's no moving parts other than, or there's no separate parts. This part does move, but there's no separate parts. It's just the spring tension of the titanium that does that ratcheting motion. So I think it's really, really cool. It's something that I think is pretty unique, and it's a great price. So when you look at these, I actually was planning to just buy one because it's under $35. These are $34. Now, of course, you have to pay shipping unless you order over $99, I believe, or maybe $90 on GearInfusion. But it's, you know, it's under $35 for this tool, and I think that's a great price. It's not a USA-made pry bar, but you can assume that based on the price. But I really think that this is a cool tool. It's one that I have been super happy to add to my EDC. It has really fit right in with my carry. Like I say, it's been unobtrusive, and really just something that adds a lot of value without adding any difficulty of carry. So thank you to Next Level EDC for making me aware of this, and thank you to Brian at GearInfusion for sending this these for me to check out. I've really enjoyed it, and I think that Brian seems to really be enthusiastic, excited about his products, working to do more in the USA, and so I think that's awesome. I'd love to see this as a USA made tool, even if it was a good bit more expensive. I think it would be a really good kind of different take on the EDC pry bar as compared to a lot of other USA made EDC titanium pry bars like the ones I showed previously. So thank you again to Brian. I've really enjoyed getting to check this out. I do plan to continue to carry and use it after doing the review here. And if you go to GearInfusion and pick up one of their tools, they do have other things like wallets and keychain tools and things like that. Make sure you let them know that Knife Thoughts sent you. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave any comments below, go to my website, knifethoughts.com, and subscribe to the email newsletter there. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.